Good morning, everybody. Silas back again today, and it looks like my farm cleanup got canceled because it is pouring down rain. It is raining pretty good. It's actually let up a little bit now, but it has been pouring since about 4:30 this morning, and it's 8:30 now, so it's been raining for 4 hours non-stop. So that's out in the middle of a field. There is no way I'm going to get the equipment back in there for at least a couple days of dry weather. So I think we're probably done with that this week. So today what I got to do is unload the car that's on my truck. Once I get that off of there, I'm going to switch vehicles. I'm going to jump in the other truck and I'm going to take off. And my dad, I believe, still has a truck today to load at one of the other yards. And I wasn't going to be able to help him with it, but obviously now I don't have anything else really going on. I had already told everybody I was closed for the rest of the week, so I'm going to go out there and help him with that. And then I got another order for 20 more of the junk lanterns, so I got to get those cut today. So it's going to be a busy day anyway. It's always a busy day. It doesn't really matter what you do. It doesn't matter what gets canceled. There's always something else to do. So let's get to it. I'll see you guys in just a minute. One last thing real quick before I forget. Because it is pouring down rain, I cannot take this microphone. The phone is waterproof to a certain degree, so it would probably be fine. But the microphone itself is not waterproof at all, so I can't take that outside. So I have my GoPro today, and I have it in a waterproof case. And so I'm going to be doing all my filming outside as long as it's raining with this. Now the only thing about this is obviously there's no microphone on this, and I'm using the internal microphone on the camera, and it's enclosed inside a waterproof container. So the audio quality is not very good on this thing here. So if the audio quality all of a sudden changes to something that's kind of hard to understand a little bit, it's not that bad really. But if you've never heard a GoPro like this with a case on it, it's not nearly as good as what you're hearing right now. So just be prepared for that. Got my trailer unhooked, went and filled up with fuel, went by, got some rain jackets. Now I'm out here meeting my dad. He already drove the loader out here. Now I don't remember, I think I brought you guys out here with me one time, but not really. This is one of our other yards. This is one we don't come to all that often, but we got a bunch of cars in here we want to get shipped out and make some room. So that's where I'm at today. And there it is, all loaded up, ready to go. Pretty good load. It's not too tall, not too long, not too wide. About the perfect weight, so that'll be a good one. Here's the crusher that I used to crush all the Studebakers. My dad's using it. He really likes this one. I like it too, but I'll use both of them. But this one here is the A+ size, or the A+ Haas, I think is what it's called. I forget exactly what the name of it is. But anyway, it's a little bit taller opening inside, so you can actually take combines and fit them in there height-wise. The thing is that you kind of may have noticed that on the Studebakers, it doesn't crush them quite as flat on the first one or two cars. And then once you add the third or fourth car in, then it starts smashing them all the way. because this one doesn't go down as low. Basically all I did was mount the cylinders a little bit higher on it so that the top of it opens up a little bit higher. There's a bunch of cool stuff out here. Old International utility truck. Got a neat old box on it. Got the ladder on it still. Bunches of cars. Tons of cars out here. There's a few old cars. A few here and there. But it is pretty well packed solid with cars. I forget how many acres are here. I want to say not quite as many as I have out at my place. I have 20 acres. I think there's like 16 acres here. 13, 16, 17. I don't know exactly. But it's pretty well solid cars, the whole thing. I used to crush cars out here all the time when I was younger. And even when I was a kid, back when it was my job just to run the controls on the crusher before we had a remote, I would stand on a bucket or a little stepladder or whatever we had handy, and I would be the one running the controls on the crusher. And then when I was probably about 14, I would say, my dad started letting me run the loader by myself, and he didn't really let me load trucks or crush cars too much yet. But then by the time I was a little bit older, probably 16 or so, he was letting me crush the cars. And then by the time I was 19 or so, I was going off and doing everything on my own. I didn't even have him there with me. It's always a little bit different. Brings back a lot of memories when he's the one running the loader and I'm the one throwing chains. Because I remember that's what I did when I was a kid all the time. I was the one throwing chains and that sort of stuff. Back in the day when we shipped cars to Texas, we don't do that anymore because Texas doesn't pay nothing for cars. But back when we used to go there, we would take whatever trucks we could get because we were shipping out load after load, and that's before we saved catalytic converters. Most cars didn't even have converters because back when I was a kid in the 90s, most of what we crushed was old stuff. I'm talking like 50s, 60s, 70s stuff. We didn't get a whole lot of newer stuff out of the 80s. That was still late model. So there was no catalytic converters. We pulled the copper radiators and the batteries, and then we crushed them. So we would ship out sometimes 5-6 loads a day, every day. And so we would get trucks in, and a lot of times the truck drivers had never hauled cars before, didn't have a clue what they were doing. And so I was 10 years old, and I was the one sighting the bundles in, making sure they were straight, throwing the chains, making sure they were tight, doing all that sort of stuff. And I had a lot of people freak out because here's this 10-year-old kid doing all this stuff, but it's all I know. It's all I've ever done. So yeah, I'm good at it, and I better be good at it because I've done it forever. Bunches of junk out here. But yeah, now most of the trucks we get all know what they're doing, so it's not that big of a deal anymore. But I like to help them out just so they don't have to do it all by themselves, because most yards, when you go in there, they'll make you do everything by yourself. And I just feel guilty doing that, so I like to help them out. There's a cool old station wagon up there in the pile. Looks like maybe a Toyota, Mazda, I don't know what it is. We'll probably hang on to it. That bus there's got a good running 350 in it. Old Buick wagon. There's some of these cars back here in the very corner that were here when we bought the place. Not these ones you can see, but there's about 3 or 4 back there. We're here for I don't know how many years now. These are just a few of the old ones we have out here. There's an old chicken wing, Phoenix. International. This cool wagon here. There's a Gremlin X. One of those is the Gremlin X. I think the blue one. Bunches of neat old cars all through here. There's an old Vega. I think that red Ford right there with the top run, I think that's one of the ones that was here originally. This little Pinto here only has like 38,000 original miles on it. Bunch of old vans, a Ford, a Dodge, and a Chevy. Or no, that's a GMC. The brown one's a GMC. these were all out of place and they were getting ready to crush them. So we came in and we bought like 75 old cars from them. And most of them are pretty well stripped out like these vans here, but if we didn't buy them, they were going to get the crunch. So we bought them. There's not a whole lot left of them, but we bought them when prices are down, so we could crush them right now and more than double our money anyway. Here's a 60 wagon. I think it's a 60, or is this a 59? I can't remember now. Pretty sure it's a 60 though. Brookwood. That old slope-back Chevy was one of the ones that was here when we bought the place. I was just a little kid back then. An old Diamond Rio semi. We parked this right where it's sitting. Here's some more of the cars we saved from getting crushed. Old fastback. There's my favorite car. There's a big old boat. It's a cool car.
That's what I like. I don't want no 440.
Like I say, most of these cars are pretty stripped, but there's just odds and end pieces on them, and there's lots of good wall art. Just hated to see them all get crushed. These aren't nearly as stripped out as those Studebakers were. I remember like that brown car and that white car underneath it playing on those cars when I was probably 10 years old, and they're still sitting here. And this winch truck over here, let's get over there. This wasn't our first winch truck. Sometime I'll take you out and show you it. But this in here, I liked this one probably more than the other one because when I was a little kid, I got to push the button and run the winch on it. A long time ago. Hauled a lot of cars with this thing. I can't imagine doing that now. The rollbacks and tilt trailers and everything we got now. I can't imagine doing everything the way we used to do it. I'll have to take you out and show you some of our other old equipment we used to operate. We used to have an old 60, what year was our winch truck? 62 or 4? The big red one.
Oh, that great big one?
Yeah, the big red one.
That was a 64.
The one we sold to Tatro. 64? Yeah, we had a 64 winch truck, and that was the one we would take out to the farm cleanups to pick the stuff up because we didn't have a forklift or skid steer or nothing like that back then. And then we would haul stuff home with this. And our first winch truck was a hand crank winch with plywood fenders. And then we got a big old cab over flat nose. Well, a winch truck that we used at the other yard to pick stuff up. Oh, there goes the truck. Carmen Ghia. Corvairs. There's a Corvair station wagon. Two-door Corvair, Corvair van. No convertibles here, but we got one somewhere. I can't remember where.
Convertibles on the other side.
Here's a little Dodge wagon. I mean, super unusual. Dodge Colt. You never see these things. I mean, they're probably not worth anything, but they're just super rare. And somebody did want it, and it doesn't weigh nothing, so we could actually sell that one more affordable if it was dug out. It costs more to dig it out than what it would for the car. This big box fan here, that's been here since, well, it was here when we bought the place a long time ago, but I used to play in that all the time when I was a kid. The roof's pretty well rusting out on it now. There used to be a salt place where they had salt and stuff like that stored across the railroad tracks, and so everything that was in here originally rusted to nothing. But I think there's a bunch of, see, when I was a kid, my dad would be out here working, and sometimes I would help him, and I would pick stuff up and run the crusher and whatnot. But then other times I was just a kid, so I would come in here and play. Yeah. And I would gather up pop cans. And I had my own little salvage yard back in the quarter where I would take pop cans. And that was right about the time that they came out with the wide mouth cans. See how these are the skinny mouth cans? I call these the antique cars. And I would save those. That's why these are all in here. And then the wide mouth cans, I call those the junk cars. And so I'd line them up and pretend like I was selling parts off of them. And then I would crush them. I did that a long time. I spent countless hours doing that sort of stuff. At home I played with Hot Wheels usually, but then I had a vise. I actually still have the vise. My dad bought it for me a long time ago, and I'd go out in the backyard and it was shaped like a crusher, and I would crush pop cans in it. Had a lot of fun back then. That's all I ever done is crush cars. And this van here, this is where I played all the time too. It's my clubhouse. See if I can even get in it anymore. I think I pretty well got all the good stuff out of it. There's a few license plates still. Don't look anything like it used to now. Rats have gotten in it, ripped it all apart. But I had that in here. That was my bed. And I had this stuff here. I don't remember what that was. Some sort of ribbon out of a copy machine or fax machine or something. And I had it strung up all over in here, and I had stuff hanging everywhere. And I had the front engine compartment blocked off. And I had some cool stuff in here. Spent a lot of time hanging out in this thing. Nothing good left of it now though. And I had this roof up here so I could actually climb out and hang out on the roof. A lot of memories. Here's a cool old Dodge 5 window. It's got some fancy patch panels on it. It actually looks pretty cool. I don't know why these trucks have never caught on. That's kind of neat. Just notice this. It's got the old fan on it. That's a chunk of money right there. Little accessories like that bring good money. One time I went to an auction and they had an original GM brass fan off of a steering column sitting in a pile of stuff. I think I bought it for $2 or $5, something like that. And I sold that thing almost immediately for $200 or $300. Uh-oh, now I can't get it to clutch. There we go. It sags a little bit. Here's an old deuce and a half. That in there ran and drove. But we ripped it all apart now. We were gonna scrap it back when prices were sky high, but we just never got it done.
See, the prison sold that to us because they used to drive that to the landfill back and forth every day.
Cool old truck, but it's pretty well junked now. And here's an old International cab over. M.E. Anderson.
Yep, he used to haul this junk.
This is a cool old truck. I've had a million people want to buy this truck, and I used to have it dug out, and it was buried. And everybody said, when you get that truck dug out, let us know. So I worked and I got it dug out, and then nobody showed up and bought it. So then it got buried again. Here's an old convertible. Can't even tell what it was now. Cougar maybe? Mustang? Something like that. Looks like a Mercury to me, but I could be wrong. Here's a cool one. I like these. Little Econoline pickups. These things here, it's kind of funny. I always heard stories of people, especially the ones that had V8s in them. I don't know what this one's got. This is just a 6-cylinder here. But people would talk about how they would take these things here, and if you slammed on the brakes too hard and knocked the front brakes up, it would pick up the rear end, and you could actually skip it up in the air. And actually on some of these, especially the last years they made these, there's actually a big heavy weight underneath the back of them back here, because there's just no weight on the rear end of these things. So in the wintertime on snow, you had no traction at all. So they started putting that weight in the later years. This is a cool one here. This old Ranchero GT. This car was beautiful when we got it, but it was, you know, a 15-year-old car when we got it. It wasn't an antique. It wasn't that cool, and so we just destroyed it and stacked it in the pile. It had some really cool wheels on it. I still have the wheels somewhere. I don't remember where I put them now. This old Valiant over here, we crushed a salvage yard when I wasn't driving yet, so I would have been 12 years old, because I started driving when I was 14. But we crushed out an antique salvage yard over in a little tiny town called Chase, Kansas. The place is called Popeyes. And there was, I think, about 800 cars there. Most of them were all antique cars. We crushed all of them. There was rows of 57 Chevys. But check out that trunk lid on that. That is just the coolest trunk lid. The rest of the car is super ugly, but that trunk lid is super cool. But we crushed a lot of old cars there. But I have a couple cars that I saved around there when I was a little kid. I talked my dad into saving for me. Bunches of old stuff in here. There's a lot more than this. This is just a small glimpse of what's in here. There's just tons of cars. Sometime when I have more time, I'll take you guys around and show you more. My dad and I went and got something to eat. It quit raining completely now. It's a little bit overcast still. The sun comes out every now and then. But I came back out here to my place, And I got, like I said earlier, an order for more of those junk lanterns, so I'm going to get to cutting those. I got a bunch of them over here, and I got a few ideas for some other designs I'm going to try. And I've got a few combine gas tanks off that farm cleanup I did earlier in the year. They're a lot bigger than these cans, but I can cut some big faces or big designs in those. And so I think I'm going to try that, but obviously those are going to cost more money. And there we go. I got another 20 of them cut. A couple of these I think turned out really cool. I really like this one here. And what this was just an old electric fence charger controller, whatever they're called. And so I flipped it around this way, cut a face in the back of it. That in there turned out pretty good. Like I say, a lot of that soot will just wipe right off, then it'll look a lot better. This can down here turned out pretty good. Pretty happy with these. And I only had one of them catch on fire on me. Forget which one it was. It was this one right here. There was nothing in it. It was just a little bit oily on the sides of the walls, and so whatever that oil was highly flammable. Because when I cut the eyes out, it shot a little bit of flames out, but that's why I never stand right over the top of them. That way if they shoot flames out, I always take a lid off too. That way they'll shoot flames out somewhere other than my face. And I think, yeah, this gas can here must have had some oily gas or something in it at some point. And that's why it kind of burned like that. Is it kind of didn't really burn, but it just kind of flamed up a tiny bit. But the rest of these all cut good. Alright guys, that's all for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It looks like we're coming up on 25,000 subs pretty soon, maybe even by the time this video posts. I'm going to be out of town a little bit, like I've mentioned a couple times before. So if we hit 25,000 while I'm gone, when I get back, I want to try to do something pretty cool, interesting. I've got some ideas rolling around in my head, but I'll figure something out, sort of like a celebration video. If you enjoyed this one though, hit that thumbs up button. Stay tuned for future content. You just never know what's going to happen next. And remember to get out there and find an adventure. We'll see you next time.